A few days ago, I finished the longest video on the channel. After all, it is a video that lasted almost 2 hours. Yes, I know I have a 3-hour iceberg, but that iceberg hardly has any editing like the most recent video I put out. What does this have to do with today's video? Nothing, but let me complain. After finishing the Elsa video, I thought I could rest a few days before continuing, but Tappei read my thoughts and released a childless new novel at the same time he resumed the main novel. Anyway, since I will have to postpone my rest, but before continuing, a thank you to the channel members. I know I haven't been able to read the members lately, and that's because I've been busy with the Elsa video, but now that I'm done and will return to the usual videos, the readers will return. On this occasion, a quick thank you to Jesus, Juan, Axel, Tony, Emiliano, Otetavo, Leo Nunes, The Rock, Boludeando, and Eduardo. Special thanks to the last 4 since I recently updated the membership prices and they are the first to join. Thank you very much. As for my English channel, a thank you to Luciano, Bake, Miko, Lagata, and Kaden. Thank you very much for supporting me in this hiatus of Season 4. I would like to keep making ReZero content even after the current season, and these kinds of contributions help.
Now let's start with the video. Welcome to the analysis of Chapter 25 of Arc 10 of ReZero. But before starting, let me quickly summarize what the episode was about.
You know that ReZero started being written in 2012, therefore, had to take 14 years for things to finally work out well for Henkel, and this is revealed in the latest episode of the novel, which came out today. Everything starts in the corner of the tavern light up in broad daylight, where Henkel is surrounded by knights of the kingdom to be arrested and taken to the capital, without putting up any resistance, knowing that he has completely run out of political options after the fall of Priscilla's camp, and the reaction of the other candidates for the royal selection. Henkel resigns himself to his fate while wondering for which of his many crimes they are going to throw him in prison.
However, to his surprise, he is not taken to the castle or to a cold cell, but to an old church of the Divine Dragon, a sacred place he hadn't stepped foot in for years because he felt completely unworthy after the events of one night, the night the princess was kidnapped 15 years ago. Returning to the present, he meets Philor, the young woman with beautiful golden hair and red eyes like burning jewels, who claims to be the missing princess from 15 years ago and the newly appointed saint of the church. Philor, full of overwhelming energy, proposes something to Heinkel that leaves the guards in shock. She wants him to become her first knight to join the competition for the throne late. Heinkel, full of bitterness and self-loathing, tries to chase her away by insulting her and accusing her of being a naive child, questioning her judgment harshly for choosing human trash, rejected by the entire kingdom. But Philore does not budge. With touching firmness, she confesses to him that she admires his indomitable determination, that inner strength that has allowed him to get back up over and over again for more than 10 years, while desperately searching for a way to wake up his sleeping wife, Luana Estrella. Upon hearing the name of his beloved Luana and feeling that someone finally recognizes his daily suffering without judging him, Heinkel's broken heart trembles deeply. When Philore promises to try the sacred sacrament of the church on his wife and never give up until she finds a cure for her, Heinkel understands that he has found someone genuine. For the first time in nearly 20 years, remembering the sweet smile of his wife and the etiquette he once mastered as a warrior, Heinkel unbuckles his sword, kneels before the young saint, and offers her his absolute loyalty, not because of the promise to save his wife or the benefits of the alliance, but because he genuinely wants to be a knight. That was how Heinkel and Philore met and became master and servant, and unfortunately, this is something that happened in the early days of the 2-month time skip, so we still don't know what has happened to Subaru and the others during these 60 days that have passed while they are currently in hiding, but that is a story we do not know. Definitely what catches my attention the most is knowing the exact moment when Heinkel's arrest happens to take him to where Philore is. Why is the chronological order of this important? Because believe it or not, it could be the first sign that the personality we know of Philore is a fake personality. Remember that it is supposed that while Subaru meets with the sages, and while he is accused as a criminal, barely 24 to 48 hours pass, and it is only in the span of those hours that Philore is informed that she will have to participate in the royal selection. But Heinkel's arrest is said to have lasted days. Several days passed as they brought him from the interior of the country to the capital. What I mean by this is that I find the speed with which they brought Heinkel very strange, even though Philore wants to imply that this whole business of her being a candidate is unexpected. I think that in reality, Philore is just pretending to be surprised by everything, but actually she has another personality, an evil personality. And this is curious to think about if we remember that right now she is supposedly trying to help Amelia and Felt, but if everything goes wrong, she will end up making things worse for the girls who are her political rivals. Although now that I think about it in detail regarding the fact of how fast they brought Heinkel, maybe Philore just ordered all of this days after Amelia's apprehension. Anyway, I don't know if you guys know this because what I'll say now happened in the light novel, but if you don't remember, 2 months have already passed since Amelia was detained and since Subaru fled the capital. I've made a short about that, and if you don't want to watch it, I ask you to skip 3 minutes ahead in the video.
Did you know that the latest chapter of the ReZero light novel has revealed something nobody expected? Well, just like One Piece had this time skip to make its character stronger, here on ReZero another time skip happened. But the most interesting part is that this time jump occurs at the worst possible moment, one where the bad guys won and the good guys seem to have vanished.
It all starts with Felt, impatient and furious, trapped as a prisoner in a luxurious guest room in the castle. Despite receiving excessive comforts, she is completely cut off from the world, with no news about Reinhard, her knight, or Rom, her adoptive grandfather. Using her wits, Felt has spent this time gathering info on the guards and their routines, meticulously planning an escape to win back her freedom, and at the same time, look for Amelia, who she suspects is going through a similar captivity. Felt knows that if her friend tried to escape, Amelia would look for her so they could run away together. She just hopes she is doing okay too. Just when Felt is about to set her plan in motion during lunchtime, she hears the cries of pain from the soldiers in charge of guarding her. The door slowly opens, and to her surprise, Heinkel, Estrella, and Filore appear, a combination Felt would have never imagined seeing. And when Felt mentions she hasn't seen Reinhard in a long time, Heinkel says that he barely sees him lately either. Then he goes right back to his usual bitter and cynical attitude, while Filore, who is now also a candidate, bursts in with an overflowing energy that catches everyone in the room off guard. Although Felt tries to keep up her hostile stance and question the presence of her unexpected visitors, Filore cuts off any useless discussion right away and gets straight to the point. Filore confesses that, just like her patience has run out, and she isn't willing to keep playing by the rules set by the Council of Sages. So she proposes organizing a mass breakout from the castle to get Felt and Amelia out. Felt, surprised by such boldness, looks at both figures and can't help but question the sanity of the candidates for the throne. Even so, she admits that escaping the most heavily guarded castle in the kingdom like simple thieves is an idea she finds both ironic and fascinating. She felt this way because it was an unexpected invitation that came after 2 months under house arrest, ever since the kingdom fell into Capella's hands. Felt doesn't know it yet, of course, but maybe we will see her reaction soon. What will Felt be able to do to turn the situation around? That is a story we don't know yet. And to close this part about Heinkel's arrest, doesn't it seem strange to you that they arrest him, and instead of taking him to the castle, they take him straight to the Church of the Divine Dragon? I mean, the kingdom is supposed to stay neutral with the candidates, but we are seeing how the kingdom is using its resources to support Filore. Obviously, we know this is because Capella is behind all of this, but I like those implicit little details the author leaves to let us know what is happening behind the scenes. Another thing I consider just as interesting and worthy of comment are the reasons Heinkel has for doing the things he does. Of course, we already know it's because he wants to wake up his wife, but Arc 9 revealed something additional, that he also does it so that Reinhard stops being the Sword Saint. I know that due to the history the anime's Heinkel has, it seems like he says this out of envy or something, but actually the times Heinkel mentioned this goal, it didn't seem like he did it with his usual resentful personality, but rather he genuinely has a noble intention to make his son drop that burden. I like how the episode mentions it again today. Something that makes me laugh a lot to remember is how Filore is aware of Heinkel's bad reputation, but still chose him. It is said she chose Reinhard's father, even though those in her inner circle warned her to reconsider her decision. Honestly, it feels very strange to me whether Filore truly appreciates and values Heinkel, or if she only does it because Capella has an interest in Heinkel, due to the singularity he possesses. Speaking of the old man's singularity, it's time to remember a detail from Arc 9 that went unnoticed. When Alcanica existed, which was basically the dragon Volcanica being controlled by Al, there was a part of this arc where the dragon knocks Heinkel unconscious and realizes something. Instantly, he says something. I don't remember the exact words, but what he said was something like, "Now I understand why this man always survives, despite taking direct hits." At that moment, that remained an unknown, but it was the first foreshadowing that Heinkel's body is singular. Then in volume 44, the author gives us this illustration of Heinkel being bathed in a substance on the very day the kingdom's princess was kidnapped. So some of us clever ones started suspecting since then that Heinkel had consumed dragon blood. What does this have to do with anything? Well, even though this was a very likely theory, today's episode confirmed that that is effectively what happened. Of course, I know some will say it was obvious and that it was coming, but as I tell you, this was a theory that I and other guys had been formulating since the beginning of Arc 9, and we are glad it was finally confirmed. Although another small theory that has nothing to do with it, but I'll mention it just in case you are interested, is that the way the light novel narrates the moment Heinkel is infected by the dragon blood implies there was someone watching the scene, Everything starts on an extremely gloomy night, when the fate of many people changed in a completely irreversible way. In the middle of the deep nighttime darkness, an agonizing and impossible-to-repress scream overflows, echoing like a desperate growl that seems to curse the whole world. The scene is truly chilling, with a man writhing in pain while foam pours from the corners of his mouth and tears of blood flow profusely down his face. A scorching heat slashes through his soul without any mercy, tearing his flesh, cracking his bones, and burning every single one of his blood vessels in an indescribable torment. In the middle of such agony, the man recognizes deep in his heart that he has committed an unforgivable sin. He sincerely repents from the bottom of his soul and yearns that, at least, there might be a reward proportional to the magnitude of the punishment and the sin committed. However, his hands are completely empty. What he thought he had obtained has slipped through his fingers into an unreachable abyss. If he had only disappeared, it would have been easier to endure, but the harsh reality is much more cruel and irremediable. The life he was trying to save is still there, trapped in the most stupid and fragile vessel in this world. While his body suffers, sobs, grits its teeth, and struggles against death, he feels the overwhelming paranoia that something small is watching him in the terrifying silence of the night. The man tries to convince himself that this presence is nothing more than an illusion caused by the immense guilt eating away at his mind, since he remembers lulling that red-haired being to sleep, promising her the end of a long nightmare and assuring her that the next day, a bright morning full of hope would arrive. But the nightmare did not end, the promise was not kept, and hope never arrived. The man is not even allowed the comfort of desiring death, because he knows that for his beloved family to reach a future, he can never give up. Gritting his teeth until they almost break, he endures the unimaginable pain of dragon blood, resisting an agony of which he does not know if there will ever be an end. Who could that someone be? Well, none other than Reinhard, someone we already have proof used to sneak out of his house as a child to follow his father. Returning to today's episode, it is Filore who says she found out about this thanks to the church's private records, which leaves me confused. How the hell did the church get that information? I mean, if not even the kingdom seems to be aware of that fact, it's like someone telling you that the religious organization in my country knows about something that happened inside state facilities, and it's something not even the state itself is aware of. I honestly hope the answer to this is satisfying. After a bit of aggressive talk between the two, Heinkel is left dumbfounded upon realizing Filore chose him just because she wanted him to be her knight, and not apparently for some other evil plan. Honestly, this chat between Filore and Heinkel easily has the same vibes as Rem cheering up Subaru. But of course here Filore cheers up Heinkel because she admires him, and not out of love. Although a detail I found great is that upon seeing Filore's seemingly optimistic nature at Heinkel's most hopeless moment, this seems to have made the old man remember his sick wife's personality. I know you guys don't know this, but there is a side story that narrates how Heinkel met and fell in love with Luana. And it is very curious how Luana and Filore share the trait of being honest to the core. That's why today, as soon as Heinkel pointed out that trait to the candidate, he seems to remember his wife. Afterward, Filore gives a hopeful speech that includes a mention of Luana and how she promises him she will try to cure her with the church's sacrament, and if that doesn't work, she will look for other ways. Here I want to make an aside, and it is that Filore comments on something interesting. She comments on how the sacrament's effectiveness depends on the patient's soul state. Honestly, not even I have the slightest idea what she means by that. Sure, I know the soul is important in ReZero, but it's not clear to me what the author plans to do with this. So far we've seen that if the OD level inside the user is modified, the vessel adapts, and what happened to Subaru happens where he transformed into a child. There is also the fact that sometimes the soul's vessel is not ideal, and this causes the container to change in order to adapt, as happens with Echidna and Ryuzu. But there is also the case where it seems, an emphasis on that it seems because I'm not sure if it was just as I'll say, the case where the soul seems to mutate after acquiring an authority, like Subaru's case, with the factors he absorbs. So facing these variables, goodness knows how the sacrament would react. Then a final scene would happen that I loved. I'm talking about the moment where Heinkel starts to recap the benefits he would have if he agrees to serve her. But the most curious part is that he doesn't agree to serve her mainly for those benefits, but rather he agrees to serve her because he wants to pretend to be a knight again. This thing about being a knight is something that is always made clear in Heinkel's life. He genuinely liked the sword, but it seems the sword didn't return his feelings. It is because of this precedent that I found it great. The fact that the biggest motivation Heinkel had in this episode, to serve Filore, was the fact that he wants to be a knight again. And that is how today's episode would end. Honestly, this was a short episode, and I am very amazed at how the author resumed the novel earlier than expected. Personally, I thought he would resume it at the same time as the anime's return, but it seems I was wrong. Remember that there is no fixed release schedule. The author simply uploads the episodes whenever he feels like it. Finally, I share my Instagram where I usually upload moments of my day-to-day life or certain things about the channel, so consider following me. See you.